Hello everyone, it's Cassie and welcome back for another Trinity Stamps video. Today we're going to be making a watercolored slimline card. So let's talk about what we're using. We have the Simply Sentimental Love stamp and dies, and I love those. We also have the Oh Snap stamp and matching dies. We have the Slimline Scenic Borders, the Puffy Cloud Layers stencil. We have some 9x4 mixed media paper, various inks, and even some embellishments. So let's jump in. I'm going to take out one of those pieces of mixed media watercolor paper and we're going to put that into our MISTI. Don't worry that it's hanging out, it'll be fine. And I'm going to ink up my little alligator from the Oh Snap and one of the birds. I'm going to ink that up with some blackout ink by Ink on 3. That stuff is great for watercolor. It's also great for Copic coloring. So we're going to stamp it a few times. This mixed media paper is a little bit textured, so I want to make sure that I have a nice crisp black image. I'm not going to be heat embossing. Sometimes I do that. This ink isn't formulated for that. So we're just going to make sure that we have it stamped a couple of times and it's nice and crisp. You'll notice I'm taking a couple other colors of the Ink on 3 ink and putting that on my glass mat so that we can do some watercoloring. That first color, that green, is called the Goddess Green, and we also have the Twiggy Brown. I'm watercoloring with a shimmer water brush. This one's by Spectrum Noir, and what that means is that it has liquid inside of it, but it also has lots of great shimmer. And you can't see it right here, but I will definitely stop here in a little bit just to show you how much shimmer it really has. This is great. Every once in a while, sometimes I have to squeeze a little bit to get a little bit more liquid and a little bit more shimmer out, but I am just grabbing the paint from my glass mat and I'm putting down a wash of color. And that's typically how watercolor works. You're going to want to put down, one wash of color, and then you can build up your color from there. You'll also notice that I am not coloring the entire alligator, so I'm leaving the bottom half uncolored. The reason for that is it would just be wasted effort because that part will be covered, so I'm not really worried about it. But I just went down far enough that I thought it would be good and covered. And so there is the green. And let me show you just how much shimmer there is. And I don't even think the light does it enough justice. It is very, very shimmery. So now I'm going to come in with that Twiggy Brown, and once again, we're going to put down a wash of that brown all over his spots. Eventually, I get to a point where I start putting a lot of dark color at the top, and then I come back in and bring that color down so that it's nice and light at the bottom of his spot. And then where I didn't do that on some of them, I will definitely come back in once those spots are dry and bring that dark back in. But we're just going to color all of those spots that same brown color. And then I'm going to even bring in some of that brown mixed with some of the green to do on top of his scales on his back. And then we'll bring that color down with more of the green. So there are lots of ways to use just even a few colors. I used just the Goddess Green and the Twiggy Brown so far, and I'm getting, I think, pretty good variation in color, which is good. Once I'm happy with all of that color, like I said, I will bring it in for some of the brown again on the spots, and then I'm going to color our little bird. Our bird is going to be colored with the Marigold Orange. And I'll do the same thing with him. Once he's good and covered, I'll bring in a little bit of the brown mixed with the orange and put that on top, at the upper portion, and let that color kind of soak down. But check out all of that shimmer. It's so much, and it's great. So now we can bring in our matching dies, and I can tack that down with a little bit of mint tape and run that through my die cutting machine. And then for the rest of our mixed media paper, I am going to bring in the Trinity Teal color, put that onto a mat, spritz it with some water, and then I'm going to bring in that brush again, kind of squeeze it and swirl that around because I want some of that shimmer to be on my background as well. And we're just going to take our mixed media paper and squish that right into the ink. And it's going to give us lots of great texture. I'm going to spritz it with water to get that moving just a little bit, and then I'm going to heat set it. I want to make sure that's good and dry before I move on to the next step, which would be pouncing it back in that color. And it's just going to give it a lot of great depth and good texture, and then there's actually a good amount of shimmer on there as well. So I'll heat set that again. And once that is completely dry, we'll bring in our Slimline Scenic Borders die, and I'm going to run that through our die cutting machine. And it doesn't go all the way to the edge. Remember, this paper is 9x4. So I'm just going to trim off the excess with my guillotine trimmer. And now we have some waves. I love it. I love it so much. I have another piece of cardstock. This measures 3.5 inches by 8.5 inches, and I'm going to bring in the Puffy Cloud Layers stencil. Again, the Trinity Teal and a Blender Buddy, and I'm going to very lightly blend those clouds. And all I'm going to do is actually just keep turning this stencil over. So I'll flip it over and just use that same portion and blend those clouds all the way down. And I did 3.5 inches by 8.5 inches because that is going to be the full front of my slimline card. You'll notice I'm not putting a lot of ink on my Blender Buddy. I'm basically using what's on my brush already and what came from my glass mat. Now we'll bring in our Slimline Sentimental die and our stamp set. And this is the Love one again. And I'm going to run the outline with white and then the letters with black. And then we'll be done with the die, but then I'm just going to use some reverse tweezers and a little bit of liquid glue, and I can tack down all of my letters to our outline. It's just so endearing to me how many different ways there are to have the word love in one stamp set, and then all of the amazing sentiments that go with it. That's just why I love these Simply Sentimentals so much, and there are several in the line if you were not aware. There's hello and thanks and happy. So there's a lot of good ones. All right, and once all those are down, we can start assembling our card. So I'm just going to put a little bit of liquid glue on the bottom half of our alligator and then put down the water where I think it would look good where he's coming out. And then I can attach him down to the front of the card, just making sure that it's all covered at the bottom. And there will be a lot of that hanging off the edge, but we'll take care of that in a little bit. Now we're going to tack down our adorable little bird on top of our gator's head, and it just looks like they're having a good time. Now I've got to decide where I want the word love, and I'll attach that down with our liquid glue. And then the sentiments that I chose. So I chose I and spending time with you, and I'll ink that up with that blackout ink and stamp that down. And I really debated where to stamp it. In the end, I'm not in love with where I stamped it, but it works. And then I'll take the I and stamp it next to the word love. I sort of wish I had just centered everything, but I still think this looks pretty good. So it'll look even better once I get the embellishments on there. All right, now that everything is fairly dry, we're going to pop this into our guillotine trimmer. So this way we can trim off all of that excess. I just line that right up on that edge, and it's an easy way to make sure that I have a nice straight cut, and I can take off all of that excess that was hanging off the edges. My card base measures 7 inches by 8.5 inches and is scored at 3.5 inches. And I'll just reinforce that with our Teflon tool. And then I am going to stamp on the inside, so I've got this in my MISTI. Once again, that paper's hanging off the edge, but that's okay. It doesn't bother it. And I'll ink up my alligator with the Goddess Green, stamp it down, and then we have something on the inside, because y'all know I have to do that. And then we can glue down our panel to our card base using that same liquid glue. But of course, we cannot stop there. I'm bringing in the Peachy Keen hearts. These are so pretty, and we have them in lots of colors. So I'm going to bring in my pickup stick, pick out just a few, and they come in various sizes. And I think there's even some that are like a little bit brighter and some are a little duller in there, which is nice because then you have variation in the color. And I'll glue those down. I'm just putting 3 down. So cute. And once that's done, that's going to finish off our card for today. I love so much how this turned out, and I hope you liked it too. If you did, please hit that like button and consider subscribing if you haven't already done so. And as always, I will see you very soon in another video. Bye, everybody.